My first 10, 11 fights, only one guy went the distance. You know, they started calling me the Sandman because I put people to sleep. They go, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I go, you know what? Let's just not call me Sandman while I'm here in Japan. I was pretty much just a trouble magnet. Like, the main problem is like, I never really ever started trouble. I just didn't get out of the way of it. I managed to get kicked out of 2 colleges, blew 2 full ride scholarships. I would have been a doctor. If I could have been a doctor, I'd have been a doctor sooner. I mean, I prefer to heal people.
What I really want Dynamis to be known for is that warrior mentality. It's really this persevering through no matter what, right? Like, hey, you know, this is hard. This is tough. You know, I'm getting older, whatever the case may be, but we're going to get through this, you know, and failure is not an option. We really try to come and educate our patient. There's a lot of really bad information out there. We talked about this last time. There's a lot of bad information, and specifically around peptides. We are about preventative medicine. Okay. This whole society for the last, since Rockefeller did it, man, we have been conditioned to treat sick medicine. Wait till the condition happens. Wait till you get sick, then go treat it with something after that. Right. We have the exact opposite. It should be, but we have the exact opposite mindset at Dynamis is don't get sick. Okay. We don't treat sick medicine because we don't want our patients to get sick. Come to us so you don't get sick.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Blueprint. Today we've got Boomer and the Sandman. They're going to be telling you a little bit. Both of them work for Dynamis, and they're going to tell you a little bit about health, wellness, and we're going to get into a little bit of Guy's MMA story that he's going to tell us about. Punched a few people in the face. You may be next. Stay tuned. But also, if you guys could do us a favor, hit that subscribe button on the bottom. I'm just going to get a lot of these stories that are going to help us get them out and give you something to relate to. So I really appreciate you guys. Do me a favor, do that. Thank you guys for coming in. I really appreciate y'all.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having us here. It's good to be back, man.
Well, you know, at the very beginning of this, I debated whether I was going to throw the Sandman out or not. I didn't want to catch a left hook coming out of that bad boy. So how'd you get the name the Sandman?
Actually, it was a girlfriend of mine who came in. She had kids and I don't know if most people know the whole Sandman thing. Sandman comes at night and sprinkles sand in your eyes, and it helps you sleep because you dreamland, right? Anyway, so she goes, you're like the Sandman, but you don't sprinkle sand in people's eye to put them to sleep. You punch them to put them to sleep. So, because I had a string of knockouts when I first turned pro, like my first 10, 11 fights, only one guy went the distance.
Yeah.
And, which is another interesting story, why I went the distance. But, so, you know, they started calling me the Sandman because I put people to sleep.
Yeah.
And so the funny part was trying to explain that concept to the Japanese because they were like, because you always do interviews and they're phenomenal marketers over there. And so when I started fighting over there, man, they already knew all sorts of stuff about me. I didn't realize it was actually out there. And this is in the 90s, so it's not as readily available, this information like it is today. And they know a lot about me. And they go, so Sandman, what is that? And so I tried to go, well, Sandman is kind of like a mythological creature, sort of like an elf of some sort, you know, who comes in and he sprinkles sand in children's eyes and it makes them go to sleep. And they're like, I could tell they weren't kind of getting it because they go, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I go, you know what? Let's just not call me Sandman while I'm here in Japan. I'll survive without that. I'll survive without that nickname. So, but anyway, so it was kind of funny trying to explain the whole concept of European mythology to the Japanese. Yeah.
Well, the cool thing is that most of my audience knows Boomer. Boomers come on and talk about some of the health and wellness, and he has a company called Dynamis that you're a part of as well. And but I don't think many people know who you are or what you got going on. I'm sure they've heard your name and everything else because. Just of the legendary status that you carry.
Yeah. No, I'm not a legend yet. And I'll tell you why, guys. See, one day, this is probably about a good 15 years ago, my wife kept telling me to take the trash out, right? And I'm in the middle of doing some work and sitting in the living room. And she, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, she's like, babe, you need to take the trash out. I get you, babe. I'll take it out in a minute. I'm in the middle of something.
Yeah.
Doorbell rings and it's a UPS guy and I actually have to sign something. So, I just scribble and he goes, how do you spell your name? Because I can't, of course you can't read it. And he goes, oh, it's Mezger. He goes, Mezger. He goes, dude, you're not Guy Mezger, are you? And I was like, yeah. He goes, oh my God, you're a legend. I was like, very flattered. Then my wife comes up with the trash, throws it in my hands, goes, a legend has to take out the trash. I'm like, what? A legend's gonna take the trash out. So the moment that I'm off trash duty, I'll call myself a legend. But until then, I'm not a legend.
So you're never going to be a legend.
I'm never going to be a legend. Not until I can't take the trash out anymore.
Yeah. You taking the trash out? You mowing your own yard?
No, that I do not do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you're part legend then. Yeah. You're halfway there. I'm still waiting on that scenario.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it's like my wife spends a ridiculous amount of money on our landscaping. It's beautiful, but I don't even bother to look at the bill anymore because it just would
infuriate.
Yeah, it would cause my blood pressure to go up.
You're too busy making money to pay for that landscaping.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have time to look at the bills because I'm too busy.
I heard this deal the other day, and it said, my wife thinks she's saving me money because she found something on sale.
Oh, I know.
And it's like, I don't understand this. And she goes, well, let me break this down to you. I'm going to buy it. I'm doing you a favor by buying it on sale. And I thought, well, that math does kind of work. I get that because they are going to get it.
I think the concept works. My wife does the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
But the more I buy, the more I save. I'm like, I don't really think that's how math works. But
okay, guys. So, because fundamentally, you guys we look at things differently. Okay, so a man will sit there and go get like a custom made suit, right? So, and his buddy will go, man, that's an awesome looking suit. He goes, it ought to be. It's custom made. And it was right there. This is Chinese silk and blah, blah, blah. It cost me, $800 like this. And, and he's bragging about how much money he spent on this one suit. Mm-hmm. Now, a woman on the other hand, so a girlfriend will go, oh, man, those are great earrings. Aren't they? They're great. They were on sale. They were only $25. And because I saved that, I got this necklace. You see this? $15. So they spent the same $800.
Yeah.
It's just that their thing is like, how do they maneuver it so they get a good deal on that?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'll ask this question. Guy, where did you grow up? Where was Baby Sandman from?
Baby Sandman. Yeah. Well, okay. I'll give you a quick rendition. We'll kind of go. I was born in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
1968. Believe it or not, I was the New Year's baby of Houston, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently, there weren't a lot of babies born in Houston, Texas. And first, because I was born like 5:00 in the evening or something like that. So,
really?
Yeah. So, but anyways. It consisted the award consisted basically of free diapers and a Guy Mezger day for Houston, Texas, 1968.
I missed
those of you guys are around then, you can probably appreciate that day. It was a monumental one, but anyway, so we moved very shortly, I guess about 3 years old or so. We moved to Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And I lived in Connecticut for a couple of years, 2 different places, and then we moved to Pennsylvania.
Who's we, by the way?
My family. So it was me, my mom, my dad, and my 3 brothers.
Okay, older?
I have 1 older brother and 2 younger brothers. In fact, my younger brothers are twins, and we are exactly 10 months apart to the day. I was born January 1st, 68. They're born November 1st, 68.
Busy.
Wow. Yeah, they were, yeah. All right, and yeah.
What do you call that? Irish twins? I think it's what
Irish triplets.
Well, Irish triplets.
Irish twins is within 10 months.
Yep.
And so we moved to Pennsylvania, and then we moved back to Texas, and we moved to Richardson, Dallas area. Mm-hmm. And I spent most of my life doing that. I moved my freshman year. We moved to Washington State for about 1.5 years, and that was awesome. Awesome. One of my best memories of my entire life was that living there. And then we moved back to Texas. And even though my life consisted of doing it, well, not so much now, but it did consist of a tremendous amount of travel. I've always came home. Dallas is always home. It's a nice place to live. I mean, you guys live close enough to Dallas to appreciate it. And, I've, raised my babies here. And so I feel I like it. It's home. So
when you said you started out in Houston, and at 3, you moved over. At what point did you start to pick up? Were you in sports? Were you in baseball? Were you in football? Or did you just come out the womb throwing?
No, actually, believe it or not, man, I got a weird dichotomy because I don't actually like hurting people. I got it kind of interferes with some of my personal spiritual values and religious values. And, But for some reason, I'm really good at it, and I was a natural. And and the difference is like I'm not sure how old you are, but when you're born in the 60s, raised in the 70s and 80s, man, you fought all the time. It was just the way it goes. And then we moved every 2 years. In fact, I didn't live in a single place more than 2.5 years until I moved in with a girlfriend when I was in my mid-20s. I lived with her for 3 years. And then, you know, I got married, you know, after that. And then that poor woman was just stuck with me for 22 years. But anyway, so, you know, you just fought a lot. You know, you just got push came to shove, and you know, it was a testing ground, and you know, you didn't get
what your dad taught you too.
Yeah, well, the problem is my father was an abusive man, and you know, and it breeds. Well, you will find most guys that fight, and what I found with a lot of guys that excel in things like special forces and more physical sports. They tend to have a rough upbringing. It's like, I was not ever scared to fight because my father's 6'5", looks like Clint Eastwood with black hair, and he's a scary individual. My father's a scary man, and so now I had to face him down every night. It was like, yeah, okay. So, some fifth grader is going to kick my ass. Okay. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. Because, you know, and so, you know, I was never afraid to fight because of that, you know, and, you know, but I was always, you know, athletics was, I had a lot of self-esteem issues growing up because when my folks finally got divorced, my father eventually was, you know, taken out of the house, taken out of the scene, which was a tough time because, you know, the crazy thing back in the 70s when that happened was they used to call you, oh, he's from a broken home because your parents are divorced. I mean, that's completely jacked up to say that because the reality is living with my father was a broken home. You know, I mean, we lived on difficult times. You know, my mom, you know, oh my God, my mom, she deserves a medal. She did an amazing job. She raised 4 boys. None of us went to prison, and all are very successful. Like I always tell people, I'm the least successful one in my family, and I've done pretty good. And you know, and she just did a really good job. But we grew up, you know, in a economically strained, you know, thing, and we lived in areas that weren't, you know, and so it made me very, very self-conscious, you know, because I had the hand-me-down clothing, you know. You know, and the funny part was I didn't realize I was poor until the 7th grade. And then all my classmates decided to point that out to me. You know, and it's like
kids are cruel, man.
Oh my God. You know, you're going through heaven because you lived through hell. That was 7th and 8th grade for me. And, you know, but what I was good at was athletics. And like, I played them all. I was a football player. I was a basketball player, but a baseball player. I swam, I ran track, and I wrestled. Eventually I started doing karate and all the stuff like that. And so I was good at it. Like my freshman year in high school, I lettered in football. In fact, I was all district linebacker, I was one of 3 athletes in the state of Washington that was all district that were freshmen. I lettered in baseball. I lettered in swimming. I lettered in track. And it's interesting. I didn't letter in wrestling. And that's where I went to college on. I went to college on a wrestling scholarship. But, you know, because of I'll be honest. I mean, you know, I really didn't get over the self-esteem issue. So I was like an adult. I mean, like an older adult.
Was it something that made you feel like you were less than because of the materialistic things, or you just thought, because of the materialistic things, it also added up to you as a human being was a little less?
Well, that's almost the opposite side of the same coin. You know what I mean? When you say that like that, because really, yeah, I mean, what it was, you know, and we're talking the 80s, you know, so it was very, you know, we were coming out of a very superficial time in our lives. And it was all of it. I mean, listen, every single one of you guys can probably remember every 40-year-old guy in 1984 when the new Corvette body came out, who had their convertible red Corvette. Every dad had one of those. You know what I mean? You know, that was just kind of one of the things. And so, you know, my main problem in most of my life was I focused on what I didn't have versus all the blessings that I did have. And I had some amazing blessings. Like, I mean, yes, not a huge amount of material blessings, but you know, like I said, I built most of my self-esteem on being a good athlete. And so being the champ was everything. And, you know, versus my brothers who were actually better athletes than me, but they were much smarter and a little more disciplined. You know, it'd be funny, like they were like National Honor Roll Society and all these different stuff that I don't know if you guys are familiar with a organization called Mensa, but it's for people with IQs over like 150 or something. Well, they got all invitations to join that, but I didn't. And, you know, my mom would be like, John and Ken and Marshall, they're straight A students, National Honor Roll Society, this. And Guy, he is so athletic, it's awesome. Yeah. And so
you have to find some way to compliment you.
Yeah. And well, my mom was always like, she always put you over. And anyway, so the problem with team sports is that you need a team to win. And I wanted to win too much. And I was not comfortable losing. And like losing to me, second place was first place loser, you know? And, you know, so I gravitated more to the individual sports. And I was just a poor kid, like wrestling and boxing and stuff like that. Those are poor man's sports. And I was, you know, and I gravitated to them because I was, you know, a state champion in this. And I was, you know, like I said, in karate, I was really good. Like I went 3-4 years completely undefeated, you know? And then I got beat once, and then I went 2 years completely undefeated, and I got beat again, then I turned pro. And but I built, you know, my self-esteem was built up in that, you know what I mean? And so I went through kind of an interesting time when I went to college. Was like I started, like, I wasn't the ace wrestler. You know, everybody was kicking my ass, and that was new. And then you know, and then just some bad things. And so I ended up getting in a lot of trouble. Like from age 17 to 20 was like a bad Miami Vice rerun. I mean, I managed to get shot. I was stabbed at that time on 3 separate occasions. I had been in trouble with the law, like really in a lot of trouble with the law. I was, you know, been hit with a baseball bat. I've been intentionally run over on my motorcycle. I mean, crazy stuff, right? You know what I mean?
Are you out looking for trouble at this point? Is this the mindset for what you're doing? Or are you just like,
man,
I'm bulletproof?
Yeah. I was pretty much just a trouble magnet. Like you know, the main problem was like, I never really ever started trouble. I just didn't get out of the way of it. That was the problem.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I kind of even steered into it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that was a problem. And, but age 20, I was in, you know, I managed to get kicked out of 2 colleges, you know, blew 2 full ride scholarships. You know, again, in and out of trouble with the law, financially, you know, got nothing going on. And, you know, and there was an opportunity to turn pro as a fighter. And, you know, so I had this big, you know, I'm like, you know, my mom's going to lose her mind when she says it, because my mom had a hard time just watching me do karate, had a hard time watching me wrestling, let alone, you know, get in the boxing, kickboxing ring.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, I'm going to get some kickback from there. My brothers, you know, they're not going to be supportive, and, you know, they're way too smart. You know, these guys are smart guys. And so I, you know, I have this big sit down with the family, and I have this big announcement to make. And I tell them, and you know, your life's in a really crappy place when you don't get any kickback whatsoever. They're all looked at me and were like, that might be a good decision for you. I'm like, what? Seriously? Yeah. And, you know, I always tell people, man, professional fighting looks like a good thing. You're probably in a bad place in life. And you know, and anyways, it turned out to be a good thing for me, because it, you know, brought back the discipline that I was lacking. You know, obviously it started with the athletic, you know, discipline, but you know, that leaks into the rest of your life. And, you know, just my life was very structured, and, which normally wasn't. And, you know, that was my, you know, that's, you know, that saved me. I mean, my martial art practice, my turn pro actually probably saved my life. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. I mean, a lot of people say stuff like that and they don't mean it, but no, I mean it.
Well, I'm going to say this before we carry on to that part of it. You talk about you were kicked out of 2 schools already, but you went for wrestling. you ended up being something you would need a lot of schooling to do, right?
Well, that wasn't my intention. To be a doctor.
And so when you were in school the first time around and the second time around, what were you going for? Was it just general business, or were you like, I really want to focus on this thing because I love it, this is who I am?
Be a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to be a teacher. I realized after doing student teaching that probably wouldn't work out good for me. But I enjoy teaching.
Snatch them up.
Well, to be honest, man, I could tell you a crazy story about. I don't know how crazy you want to get into stories, but
forget it.
All right. So I was doing student teaching, and they had this program where you started real early in their teaching. Normally, they start student teaching like your third year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they actually started you on you could on your second semester or third semester. So on my third semester, I decided I'm going to do some student teaching. Right? I wanted to. I enjoyed that, and so believe it or not, I ended up getting into a school called Carpenter Middle School, and I went to Carpenter Middle School, and so I was going to, I was supposed to teach history, but they didn't have a history section. They had a special ed section open, and I wouldn't really train for special ed, but I was like, all right, I'll do it. And so I went in there, and and I fell in love with these kids. It was just, I know what it's like to be, kind of like, I know what it was like to be the underdog, right? And all these kids are like considered underdogs, and they're all, and to be honest, we still marginalize them a lot, but a lot less now. And so, you can't help but want to root for them. And so I had one little boy who, a good kid, just grew up, not in a great place but a sweet kid. And he kept coming late to my class, like 3 or 4 times. I was like, can't be late to class. I've let you slide so much. The second tardy, the third tardy, you're supposed to get a detention, you're like on 5 or 6 lates, and he's like, next time you got to be late. I got to give you attention, man. You just can't be late. And he just starts crying. And this is a tough kid. And so I'm like, I'm only like, I don't know, maybe 19 at the time. Yeah, I was like 19, and it was like, I didn't know how to handle that. And I was a kind of emotional kid myself. And so I'm like kind of freaking out. So I sit down and listen to a story. So the story was, now you got to understand, they still had corporal punishment. And I always love these people that talk about corporal punishment. Oh, and kids like, no, anybody who wants corporal punishment is an asshole. Now I'm telling you that right now. You're an asshole if you endorse corporal punishment in school.
Yeah. And
because it's not administered fairly. Football kid, the good football players, they never get paddled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The kids with the money, they don't get paddled. Who gets paddled, man? The kids who probably need the least amount of paddling gets paddled. Guys like me, who every time they hit me, all I can think of is scratching their eyeballs out, And so anyway, so this kid has a condition where he can remember like locker combination. Like one day he'll remember his locker combination. The very next day he can't. And it's no fault of his own. This is just a disorder he has with the way he catalogs stuff in your brain. And so what happening was he would forget his combination to his locker in gym class. And so he'd have to ask the coach for it. And so the coaches got irritated with that. And they would give him they would paddle him. And he's a tough kid, but they hit him so hard one time he started crying. And this is 8th grade. You cry getting paddled, man. It was like humiliation at a level that is like hard to come back from. And so he started crying, and he said, man, I didn't want to run the risk of crying again because they hit me. So I either had to get paddles or I had to run. So I was running. So I run now, and that's why I'm late. So I'm like, not a problem. I'll handle this. I'll go down and talk to your coach, explain to you what the deal is. It won't be a problem. So I go down there. In fact, the coach, who was an assistant coach when I was in school, was now the head football coach, Coach Lawrence, Coach Lawrence is an asshole, just so you guys know. and
shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Coach Lawrence.
If he's watching this.
And hopefully you're watching. Anyway, so I went there, and this is back in the day, man. You didn't have internet. So I literally went to the library, Xeroxed out of the encyclopedia his kid's condition like this. I highlighted it. I took some notes like this. I was going to this whole presentation because I knew Coach Lawrence. I knew he was kind of a difficult guy, but I didn't realize what a jerk he was. And so I go there and I walk in there and it just totally disrespected me. And you got to understand something, man. I'm like 19 years old, man. I was a hothead, and if you disrespected me, there was a good chance you were going to get your teeth loosened. And so I'm sitting there and they're just, and he's just not even, he's reading a newspaper. I'm talking to him. He's not put his newspaper down. There was 2 other coaches, younger guys, and they're just laughing at me. And I snapped. I'll be honest. Not one of my prouder moments. I'll give that. Should have handled it differently. But I snapped. And I started to walk out, and they were like laughing. And I grabbed these chairs. Those plastic metal chairs that they have? It's a deadly weapon, by the way. I took
Solid.
Especially the old ones made from the 80s.
I picked that up, and I went, boom. I threw it at the 2 guys laughing at me. And they're ducking down like this. And I went, I got up in Coach Lawrence's face, and he's a short, fat guy. And I get up in his face. I said, you made a mistake, dude. He goes, let me explain to you, Coach. When I left this school like this, I was 3-time state champion. I'm state national world karate champion. I'm an undefeated amateur boxer. I said, I will kick if you ever lay a hand on this kid again. I looked over at those guys. You guys want to do something? I'm literally calling out these guys. And suddenly sanity came back to me. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I was like, I've lost my mind.
Another job.
Yeah. And so I was like, so I leave and I go to my advisor and I told her what happened. I just said, listen, I started emptying my desk. I realized, I'm hoping I'm not going to go to jail. And, even before I could leave, I had a meeting with them, they had a police officer, the whole 9 yards. And, I dealt with it, it's like, I was out of line, but so were they. They're hitting the kid who can't do his thing, I tried to explain to them, they're being rude like this. I go, and anyway, so I'm leaving, but here's the crazy part. I'm walking out of there and I have to go back up to my room to get my stuff. And all the teachers came out and they're high-fiving. Everyone's going, man, I've wanted to do that so much. I'm like this, like this, like this. And so I said, okay, I'm going to press my luck. So after putting all my stuff back in my car, I ran back down to the gym. And I explained to Coach Lawrence that this ain't over. And this kid better not have a hand laid on him. I said, I will come here and it'll be just me, you. And I said, you can bring your girlfriends too. I don't care. And, so then I realized teaching's probably not in the cards for me. I came to that realization too.
So I went into kickboxing.
Yeah. Well, shortly thereafter, I got in a little bit of trouble. And, long story short, what happened was in that time, after that, I got shot in a drive-by. By accident. Me and my friend just walked into a bad scene. And, and this is back before they had protected scholarships. So they cut me to half scholarship. I'm a poor kid, man. I'm going to school in Southern Illinois, in Edwardsville, Illinois. And so I couldn't afford to live there. So I came back and, I tried to stay in school, at Brookhaven and Richland and stuff like that. But I just lacked the discipline and, to be honest, I'm feeling sorry for myself and just got on a bad track on things and didn't go back to school until I was 35 years old.
Crazy. Yeah. Well, one thing I can see is like when you're a kid who's caught a few growing up, you have a ton of empathy for other people who you see are catching it.
Oh, yeah.
And when you see that and you want to stop everything from being taken advantage of or being, you want to be that guy, right? And I see it in your eyes. I see it when you're talking. I see it the way you have to take a breath between words sometimes because it's still there. And so, man, I wasn't expecting that, to be quite honest. And it's pretty impressive, to see somebody that's still, as they're getting older and going through, the understanding of who they are, like to sit back and think about those kind of things. Like, this is who I am and this is why I am, man. That's pretty cool.
I just don't want other people to have the same issues, Because here's the problem. When kids like me come up with situations like this. One or two things come up. You become very overprotective or you become a bully yourself, And I became like crazy. I can't stand bullies.
Same.
I mean, I literally had a confrontation 6 months ago with a guy who wouldn't leave a woman alone. Literally just wouldn't leave her alone at a gas station. You know what I mean? And, it didn't end up good for him. And, and I'm 58 years old. You know what I mean? It's like, one of these days somebody's going to whoop my ass when I step up. But, but I still think that for me, I think the problem that we do is, and I think, is that not enough people step up when they know they should because they're afraid, and I get it. I get the idea of physically being afraid of somebody, I understand that, I understand how that is, but, there are some brave souls out there who aren't Guy Mezger who can fight, who still stand up for people, still step up and do the thing like that. And those are the people that, for me, it's like, I was always just naturally good at fighting for some reason. I could just figure the game out. I was not scared. I was very analytical about this. I could tell, like, you walk up on me, I know if you're left or right-handed most of the time. I can tell all sorts of stuff. I can tell if you had injuries. I can tell a lot of stuff just because I can see as you're walking in on me, right? Now, not everybody has those talents, right? You know what I mean? And so, for me to get like kudos for being a tough guy is like rewarding a dog for barking. You know what I mean? You just don't. That's just part of the nature of the animal. You know what I mean? And, people who step up and do brave things, whether it's physically brave things or intellectually, emotionally brave things, who aren't equipped for that kind of stuff, they deserve the acknowledgement. They're the ones that sit there and deserve to get the that of boys or the that of girls because, to me, stepping up and fighting didn't scare me, but stepping up and talking in front of a couple hundred people, yeah, I'm a little more comfortable with it now, but man, it used to give me fright.
Yeah.
I'd rather be punched.
Have you seen the ones where they're online now and they're actually doing it as a test and they go out and they go in public and they have a kid that walks in front of them and they run up and they grab a kid like this and they duck into an alley.
See who will react.
And they record to see who's seen it and how they react and where they go past. And it's like 10% of people, man.
Yeah. I think I have seen that.
10% of people are
just that don't do anything. I don't. Of course, they're also, they edit the ones that do. So you don't know really how many people don't react and how many people do because it's things like this. But yeah, I personally think, okay, and this is not a right wing, left wing kind of thing. Our country's going to be in some financial problems in the next few years. The economy and what's going on, because I was also originally going to be an economist too, but we're in for trouble, man. We're handing our kids a not so great thing, and it's not something that's going to be out in a couple of years. It's going to be a long-term plan, an 8, 9, 10-year plan to really kind of get stuff back on track, I believe. But if we take if we take an attitude of I'm just looking out for me and mine, then they ain't never going to get there.
Yeah.
The difference, I think, with Americans, let's say 100, 200 years ago. Well, I'll tell you a prime example, great example. Okay. During World War II, we interned, another major mistake on our part, but we interned a lot of the Japanese people, right? Put them in internment camps. And there's stories that talks about how people like these, they literally just took them out of things. And these people had jobs and farms and all this. And there's one story about a farmer who took care of his neighbors, he's Japanese, took care of his farm while he was in internment camp and sold his crops, grew his crops, sold his crops, did the whole 9 yards. Like this, when the guy got out, he obviously just said, well, here's your farm. And he gave him all the money that he made off this guy's crops. That was like 1940s, 1950s. I read that. I was stunned. I was like, wow, man, that's what it's about. Right? The difference is between what would happen in 1950 or 60s and stuff like that. And today is that if I was to leave, the guy would come in, get my farm. He would short sell me at the bank. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
take your farm.
Yeah, and take my farm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference. And the difference is that person would be considered a good businessman.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, I think we need less good businessmen. We need better human beings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's really cool to keep in perspective of that side of you as we go to start talking about this other side of you, right? You went from kickboxing, became champ in that, and then you took it to a whole, you said you went professional. Like what was that cycle like?
To be honest, I was just getting paid. That was the difference. Mm-hmm. I've been fighting for free for a long time. Like I said, it helped out a lot because my self-esteem, I got kudos. Now people knew, the nice part about Dallas, or I don't know if it's nice, but about Dallas, okay? Dallas is a big city, but it's got a small town mentality. Mm-hmm. So it don't take hard to be a big deal in Dallas, right? You know what I mean? It'd be hard to be a big deal in New York, but it's not hard to be a big deal in Dallas. And so at the time, I was the only guy really doing anything in that space, boxing and kickboxing, especially kickboxing. And so everybody knew who Guy Mezger was, you know what I mean? And it was great. And, I started working for Larry North as a trainer. In fact, that's how we met each other. He worked for Larry too, 100 years ago. And, it was just a situation where, it gave me leverage. It gave me leverage to go, become bigger and better things. Mm-hmm. Now, I always liked the fighting. I liked the competition. In fact, if I wasn't so banged up and didn't have to deal with all the BS with the boxing commission like this, I'd probably play a little bit now. You know what I mean? At some degree or another. I just, it's not for everybody. I don't put fighters on a pedestal like some people go. They do. Fighters. Most of them, to be honest, if they didn't have the fight business, they'd probably be in jail. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, there are a lot of really great guys in there. And generally the guys who are the champions tend to be the great guys. They tend to be very smart. They tend to not, in the fight business, MMA is a little different because most of the guys come out of college wrestling. That's why they're successful. So they're educated. Mm-hmm. But before that, fighters didn't have degrees. You know what I mean? In fact, I'll be honest, it's not like I had this over desire, thing to be a professional fighter. Now, I like the accolades that came as being a good athlete and everything, but, it wasn't like I was like, yeah, this is my big dream. I was just in such a crappy place in life that it turned into my focus. Mm-hmm. I would have been a doctor. If I could have been a doctor, I'd have been a doctor sooner. Mm-hmm. I prefer to heal people. Mm-hmm. I prefer, I don't like necessarily hurting people. I understand the necessity of it. Mm-hmm. People go about, no, the violence is a necessity at times, and I understand that. I'm not naive. In fact, I had a confrontation 4 or 5 months ago, which was a physical one, again, he brought it on himself, but so it's not like I don't do this, but if I can, if I didn't have to punch another person in the face ever again in my entire life, I'll be all right with that. Yeah. Yeah. I'll be okay with that. And, and so, for me, when I first started fighting UFC, you guys understand, man, there were no rules. Yeah.
I remember. I loved them. That was crazy back then.
There were no rules. There was no time limits. There was no weight classes. Safety equipment was optional. It was bare-fisted. And, to be honest, man, it was like, well, I was scared. Yeah. And it wasn't like, okay, so when I stepped in the UFC, I had like 60 pro fights, hundreds of amateur fights, thousands of them actually. Literally I had over 300, 400, 500 maybe wrestling matches, 200 or so judo matches, maybe another 100 sambo matches. Sambo's like judo. I had like 48 amateur boxing fights. I had 20 amateur kickboxing fights, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of karate fights, and a pro record. And I was like, I agreed to do that. I didn't put 3 hours of sleep together a night. I would wake up and I would just be stressing about it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I wasn't stressing. I realized, obviously I'm fearful of the fact I might get hurt, but that was never I never really worried about that too much. But what I really worried about was now I'm going to be in a space, because it was so controversial that everyone's watching this thing. And I'm like, I'm going to be on a stage I've never been before. Never fought under these conditions before. And millions of people are either going to see me win or get my ass handed to me.
Mm-hmm. And it won't be gentle.
Yeah. I go, this is not, that's what actually kept me up. Yeah. Was the whole idea of that, you know. And it's like, I remember Kathy Kidd was her name. She ran the back area for the UFC back in the 90s. And so we're all doing our interviews, our pre-fight interviews, and they're filming it. And then so, you know, there's a little lag time. I'm listening to a couple of guys go, and they're like, I can't wait to get in there, the UFC, to prove myself. And blah, blah, I'm thinking, man, this guy's hardly got any fights, anything like this. I mean, how is he so confident like this? You know, man, I was like, he's got to be out of his mind, you know? And so they did mine, and they're like, so Guy, so how you feel? I go, how about you, man? I hear everyone, they're all excited about this. I said, I haven't slept good since I agreed to do this, man. I go, I'm just ready to get it done, because I sit there, I go, man, I want to get I'm ready to get some regular sleep. And, you know, they all thought it was funny, but it was the truth. And, you know, and so, you know, so I stepped in there, and I'll be honest, the nice, you know, people go, oh, it's like a street fight. Mm-hmm. Okay. I've been in a ton of street fights. Okay. Ain't like a street fight. Mm-hmm. Okay. First of all, in all the street fights that I ever been in, I never met anybody who knew how to fight.
Yeah.
I mean, I met mean guys. I met strong guys, tough guys, vicious guys. I've been stabbed. I've been shot. I've been all kinds of bad stuff happened to me. So, but never anybody could really fight. Mm-hmm. So now I'm stepping into a ring, and I never, by the way, ever a street fight in a 30 by 30 cage. You know, that's never been the case, you know? And so it's not like a street fight. And so I'm actually going against somebody who knows how to fight, has some experience fighting. I think he's had 32 something fights or something.
Who was it?
A guy named Jason Farron was the first guy. And, you know, and so I'm like, all right, you know, let's do it. And it's interesting because just the format itself. Now, I've had a lot tougher boxing matches. I have lots of kickboxing matches, but the format itself was very, it's going to sound like it's a very spiritual experience, not in like religious spirit, but in more of a personal experience, because there was something about it that set me free. Like I sat there and I was like, man, I literally looked death in the eye. It's not like I haven't been shot at. And again, I have, right? So you are looking at death when that happens, right? But I was never scared or never worried. I never had this feeling of like, literally like, I was 30 pounds lighter after that. And it was weird. It was a weird experience. It was a great experience. I mean, you know, I don't know. Maybe it's like skydiving for certain people. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Mm-hmm. But it changed a lot of perspective of where I was in life. Mm-hmm. And you know, what I realized, I was not really fearful ever. Like, I wasn't fearful to fight. I was more fearful of things like may look like a fool, or, you know, not being successful, not, you know, I hid it underneath all these other things, but all that got revealed. And I remember saying to myself, man, I just sat there and just did this, even though Jason Farron is not a bad fighter or nothing, but he wasn't in my league. Yeah. You know? And even though I wasn't somebody in my league, it was just the whole experience. It set me on to doing this. I was like, man, if I can do this, man, I can do a lot better things in life. Mm-hmm. And I did. Yeah.
Was the kick kid mentality, was that kind of coming back out again?
The what?
The kicked kid mentality.
Oh, I think that never really goes away with too many people. I think what happens is certain experiences and certain things people say will always bring that up.
Bring it back.
It does for me. Like I'll recognize it now. I don't react to it like I did when I was a younger man, but I recognize it.
Yeah.
I recognize that there's that feeling, and you're like, all right, I've been here before.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, the fight business is such a crazy business, man. I mean, it's hard to explain. It's not like I welcome it. Like my son, Logan, my middle son, he is so good. It's ridiculous. But he's sweet, he's kind, and he grew up with two parents. And my wife is amazing. It's like I always say, every now and then you'll hear the guy being charming about his wife go, let me introduce you to my better half. If I'm truly honest, I'd have to introduce my wife as my better 3/4 because she really does more than anything in my life. And she's with the kids and stuff. And so, my son didn't grow up with how I did, which I'm blessed for, like this. And he's sweet and he's kind and he's strong and he's brave, but he didn't wear a chip on his shoulder. And so everyone has to fight, has to have a little bit of a chip.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's not do it. Not that he was super excited about doing it, but he always always wanted to see what it was like. Said, all right, if you want to do it amateurly, fine, but let's not do anything pro.
Yeah. So as you went through that first thing and the next thing, what was the biggest fight you ever had?
I've had so many. I think probably the best fight was when I beat Funaki for the King of Pancrase World Championship. Because Funaki is the only guy, he beat me twice. In fact, if you guys can see this, see my elbow looks like this because he broke my arm. And probably can't see this, but that scar there is where my shin came through my leg when he got me in a leg lock. So here's a guy who not only beat me, but broke me. And so, and just, I always love the people. Always love like, mainly American martial artists who always go, what's really missing in American martial arts is the honor and respect and honesty comes from Japanese. I'm like, what planet are you on? Just reading a history book, we understand that they're not so honorable like this. And of course, like in Japan, they have an agenda. And what they did not want to have is another white American guy going in there and winning their championship again. So Funaki, who kind of went into, he made some movies over there and stuff like this. So he wasn't fighting as much. And so he lost his ranking. All right. And so I'm destroying all the guys coming up. I was like ranked 6 and I started moving up. All of a sudden they bring Funaki back. They put him in a fight against the number 1 contender, or the champ, and jumps over me. And I kind of understand Funaki's much more popular. He's going to bring more money into things like this, but I'm the ranked guy. He jumped over, he beats this guy. Now I have to face Funaki. And the reason they did that was they knew that Funaki would be the only one to beat me because he already beat me twice. And it's funny, man. I was like, it didn't faze me. And it's interesting why, because I don't know how much you guys believe in visualization, but you should, by the way. Visualization is the absolute key. If you can't see yourself doing something, people, you ain't going to do it. It's just the way it is. You've got to see yourself be able to do it first.
Yeah.
In your mind's eye. And it's funny because, so when I was a younger athlete, this is before there was MMA, I get up in the mornings and have to run. Okay. And, in Texas, winters are cold. They're not long or anything, but they're cold. And literally, I would pull my hoodie all the way up to one eyeball. And I'd run until I got frozen, and I'd put it on the other eyeball, like this. And I hated running. And I would always use visualization while I was running. And there used to be, they used to have things called magazines. I know they don't really have those anymore. All right. They had this thing called magazine, and they had one called Karate Kung Fu Illustrated. And they would, it was great. And they did a thing on shoot fighting, which was the pre-runner, which Pancrase was a shoot fighting organization. It was a pre-runner to full MMA. In fact, it's closer to what MMA is today than back then, because it was basically no holds barred back in the old days. And they had these guys out there, and I'm watching, and they had a whole photo of things like this. And there was a picture of Ken Shamrock, who I didn't know was Ken Shamrock at the time. And I literally I thought, man, how cool. It's got kickboxing, which I was a kickboxer, and they got wrestling because I was a wrestler, and submissions. I was a judo player. And I was like, man, I would love to do this. And I would run, and I'd go, I'm going to be the world champ. I'm going to be the world shoot fighting champion. I'm going to be the world shoot fighting champion. And fast forward, that was 1992. Yeah, something like that, 92, 93. Fast forward, 1998, I'm sitting there fighting Funaki. They do the whole they're very big on pop and service stance. The whole, introduction, that's half the fight. And I'm looking over, and he's wearing all black trunks, black shin pads, black knee pads. I'm wearing red trunks with red and black shin pads like this. And that was the vision that I had, because that was the vision from the magazine that I had that would do mine. And I was like, wow, man, I've been here hundreds of times. I'm going to win. I remember looking over my corner and I go, I'm going to win. They're like, yeah, sure you are. He's only kicked your ass twice, And I kicked his ass. And I did a good job. It was the smartest fight I ever fought, because I outsmarted him, which is saying something, because he is a chess master. And I just knew how to fight him. I stayed on it, and it went for full 30 minutes. It was a full 30-minute fight. So we fought for 30 minutes straight, and I outsmarted him. I was like, it was the best fight I ever had, because I'm beating a guy. I beat him. Funaki's better than me. I got no bones about admitting that. He was much better. He couldn't wrestle as good as me. He didn't like getting hit very much, but he was a skilled striker. Awesome at submission, obviously, because I've only been submitted 3 times out of like 65 MMA fights. And so I just never been submitted never been submitted in judo, never been submitted in sambo, never been submitted in jiu-jitsu. But I got submitted 3 times. 2 of those were by Funaki. That's how good he was. So, but I beat a better man because I outsmarted him. You know what I mean? And it was like, I tell people all the time, if you are determined enough and you think your way through it, you can win at just about anything, and it's just, and it was the truth, I mean, it's the absolute truth. Funaki was better than me, is better than me. And, I just was smarter than him that day. And I was more determined. And, that's my best victory.
That's crazy.
It was also for the world title. So
that's amazing. Well, I Boomer, I don't know how much you watched UFC, back in the day.
Oh yeah. I loved it. Yeah.
I was a huge, Hoist Gracie fan.
Sure.
Love to see that cat choke people out, and
using his gi. He used to use his gi to choke people out.
Yeah. He was always, there was all these big muscly dudes that were just like beating people to a pulp, and he would just take it and take it and take it and take it and take it. And next thing you know, it's like, here he is choking somebody out or holding their ankle, and they, and they're tapping, it was really kind of crazy to see, the smaller guy have an opportunity to take a dub, and so loved watching the fights, man. Honestly, like it was really, really, really cool to watch those, and to be a part of something like that. And then to even have you on our show, and really kind of cool, man. So again, thanks for being here. But
my pleasure.
Going into the next part of your life, like, so after you kind of put that away, you had to retire at some point.
Yeah. God has a sense of humor. He makes you superhuman. Then about 37, 38, he makes you mere mortal, and that kind of sucks. And that happened to me. And but I was done with the fight business, man. I mean, I'll be honest, man. It was like if it was only about competition, because I love competition, I'd have done it till I'd be doing it today. But the business side of stuff, it just wears your soul out. And so I was so ready to go. But the problem was, again, self-esteem issues. And
who am I if I'm not the tough guy?
Yeah. I built my life on being the champ. And on top of it, I'm making a stupid amount of money. And I'm like, if I quit doing this, what am I going to do? I mean, literally, what am I going to do? I don't have I always had a gym, but it doesn't make the kind of money I make fighting. I mean, not close. I mean, maybe 1/10 of it. And I didn't have a college degree. Everyone thought I graduated college because I was a fairly successful college wrestler, but I didn't finish college. And I was like, man, I was like, I didn't know what to do. And then I was actually forced to, because I was taking a medicine called Vioxx. It's basically kind of an anti-inflammatory. And because my knees were shot. And it's a great medication, except for it causes you to have heart attacks or strokes. That was the one downside of it.
That's a huge
That's
one.
kind of a downside.
It's kind of a downside, yeah. I would consider that a downside.
Yeah.
Like 6 feet downside.
It's like a side effect.
Yeah, like real far downside. And anyway, so I had a stroke. And I was very fortunate. It wasn't a devastating stroke, obviously. But it's weird. It's like things that people would normally look as disasters turn out to be blessings in my life. Like having that stroke, and I didn't have the actual, I didn't even know I had a stroke. And only thing was I had this weird feeling in the middle of the night. And then the next morning, I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I was just uncomfortable. And I said, all right, I'm not going to train today. I'm going to go, because you have to get your medicals. And and I was like 35, 36, something like that. And you have to do extensive medicals for that, when you do that, when you're that age. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to take the day off. I'm going to go there. So they do that. They do the brain scan. And I'm there and they're like, Mr. Mezger, we need you to go to the emergency room. I'm like, okay. So they take me to the emergency room. They start hooking me up to all these machines and stuff like this. I'm like, no one's telling me what's going on. Anyway, so I found out later on that I had a stroke. And the area that I had the stroke in is, they call it the silent killer, because what happens is that you don't have any outward, you don't.
No signs.
The difference, yeah. Mm-hmm. And, you're having a brain bleed and brain bleed. And then, you got to be conscientious, something happened like that. So I just looked at it like it was a sign for me to, I'm done, man. I don't want to do this anymore. Like I said, I'm just done. And it was tough, because I was making a lot of money. And I was like, man, that came to a
screeching halt.
And my wife is pregnant with Logan. And, terrible timing for this, and so I just, I sat out and just, I don't know if you guys are fans of prayer, but I'm a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
Sat down and, just started, talking about what am I going to do, and it sounds like it's a disaster, but it was a blessing, because I wouldn't have quit, because I was just making too much money. I didn't know what I was going to do with myself, especially making that kind of money. And I would have just worn myself out. And instead, it turns out to be even better. Okay. So I start figuring out what I'm going to do. And so I started a consulting business. Next thing you know, Mark Cuban buys my consulting business and makes me the president of part of a division of his television company. And now I'm in TV, and it was a blessing for me, because again, through my insecurity, I did not know what I was going to do. Now, one of the smartest, wealthiest men in the world, and Mark Cuban, love him or hate him, I happen to love the guy, but he's one of the smartest guys you'll ever meet. I mean, his way he talks like this, he intentionally does it to disarm you. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys that gets you to think that you might be smarter than him in order to but you're not. And anyway, so he, it was just it was a boon for me. I was like, man, if I can, if one of the smartest guys in the world sees value in me, something like, it's not like I have a TV background, you know what I mean? It was like this. I just had, I had an idea, knowledge about how to do it, how to put the sports together, and I did it. It was great. I did it for almost 5 years, and I left. Well, I left because Ryan Seacrest bought. They merged, so HNet became Access TV, and they were not nice people. It wasn't like they weren't good guys or nothing, but they were just different from me. The way I do stuff, and I'm a little OCD about stuff, so I'll get into things, and I'll be honest, it has to kind of be my way, or it's not comfortable for anybody, And so I thought, what, this is probably a good idea for me to leave, because I literally produced it. We were the number one programming on HDNet, number one programming. We put that, it was pretty awesome. And so I said, I'll just go out as a champ like that. And part of my deal was I always wanted to be a doctor. So I looked into doing stuff, and there was a question like, where they were going to put a severance deal together, man. I don't need a severance deal, man. You guys have been a blessing in my life. And like, Mark goes, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I want to go back to school. I said, there's a naturopathic school in Oregon that I can do online. I can do, things. I only have to be up there a few times a year, because I'm now, I have family and everything here in Texas. I want to become a doctor like that. And they're like, he goes, okay, great. And he paid for my school. That was my severance pay. And so, that's how I went in the journey there. And then trying to get in the PhD program was actually a pretty funny story. It wouldn't let me in. I literally told the guys after my third attempt, I was like, you guys got to let me in because I'm not leaving until you accept me. Literally, I told them, I go, this is not a threat. I didn't want to think I was like going to beat them up. But I said, I'm just literally not going to leave until you guys accept me into this program. And actually, a mentor of mine who, he became a mentor. He was one of the guys on the board. Great guy, amazing doctor. He was actually an orthopedist. And then he had some health issues and he started investigating, alternative ways like this. And he became, in fact, it's how I got all the information on peptide medicines and stuff like this. He was into peptide medicines way before everybody else. In fact, he introduced me to BPC, the original form of it, which was called something different, but BPC 157, which is a peptide to help accelerate healing. And so, he goes, I'm going to send you this stuff. I want you to take it. And so I'm taking it and I'm like, yeah, I don't think it's working. He goes, it's working. I don't think it's working. It's working. And, it didn't feel any different. I was just always this. And the difference is like I had extensive shoulder surgery. I tore 3 heads off my rotator cuff. I tore my bicep tendon and my bicep. And so I had the surgery. And then so that's why he gave me the BPC. And I went from a projected 10-month rehab recovery to 5 months. I was like, holy crap. That's when I was like, this is, and that's why I got, kind of our specialty is, developing peptide therapies, because a lot of people, everyone thinks they know about peptides, but they really don't. And, but we do is we develop safe, efficient, effective programs. And I had a lot to do with Dr. Smith being a great guy. He passed away, but he was an older gentleman then. But this guy was like surfing at 83 years old. Yeah. He lived in San Diego. Yeah. And it was like, that's how I want to be. Yeah. He died at 85. Healthy. He was surfing all the way up to 83 years old. You know what I mean? Just living life and stuff like this. And didn't wake up one day. And that's how I want to be, man.
That's it for sure. Brother. Well, let me say, you went to school and you graduated. Yeah. You had to sit in to make sure you got into the doctorate program.
Got in the doctorate program.
You got through that, and then you came back and you came here, right? You stayed here. Yeah, family's already here, right?
Yeah, I was here. So what I started originally was I didn't really go into like practice, a practice, mainly because in Texas they don't license this, they don't license natural doctor, NDs and doctors of natural medicine. They don't. So it wasn't like, it's more on the idea I had my, PhD versus the other program. And so I just started, I was always somewhat of a Dr. Frankenstein when it came to doing stuff. I always did stuff. Why I'm good at what I do is I'm again, a little OCD. I get very like locked in on something. Well, I always want to be the better athlete, right? Like I knew God didn't make me the best athlete, but I knew that I could make myself into an exceptional athlete. And that's what I did. I read everything. As a kid, I read everything on anything that had to do with martial arts, with weightlifting, with food, all this other stuff, and so literally by like 13, I knew more than most doctors about nutrition. And so, that's kind of why I like I am much better at figuring out men's health issues than I am women's health issues because obviously I've
been there, done that.
Yeah. I've been there, done that. And it interests me. That became my focus. And, so it was just, stepping up into, I started doing formulations. I was telling you about that 'cause I gave you guys one to try that I'm sure you guys are going to like. I started doing that. And then interesting how I started doing, going into more metabolic oriented stuff. Cause that was always my specialty. It was a metabolic function. A friend of mine goes, hey, I am been asked to invest in a medical company called Cerebrum. It was called Stream Center or Stream Health. And it is it's for brain injuries and post-traumatic stress and all this. And I was like, well, I'm not a neurologist. I mean, I can tell you how the brain works because I went to school and they tell you how the brain works. But I said, I don't know a huge amount, about interventions about that. You know what I mean? And he goes, yeah, but you're the only guy I know who might know something about it. So I was all right. So I went and met with the guys, the doctors there, and I didn't think it was going to be a great experience because they're all in their like mid 30s and stuff and early 40s. And they're like, hey, when I was a kid, you were my favorite fighter. I'm thinking, am I that old? I don't like these guys. And, but anyway, so yeah, needless to say, they started talking, to be honest. It might have been Chinese after a while. Outside, we got a normal brain function, certain abnormalities that we know about, like we can fix, I knew about, but then, man, they started going into stuff and I was just like, yeah, okay, I don't understand this. And I even told them, I said, guys, you're talking Chinese now. And they're like, well, would you be interested in going through the testing on it so you can get a firsthand experience? And I knew I was having problems. You don't fight for 17 years. I fought for 17 years as a pro. What you guys also understand is I had 145 professional fights. Like I had a full career as a professional kickboxer, boxer, and full contact karate fighter. And then I had a full career later on as an MMA fighter. And so even though I didn't get hit a lot, the reason you could do what I do, I didn't ever get like getting hit. I'll tell you why I don't like getting hit. I'll tell you a funny story about that later, but I didn't like getting hit. So I was very good about not getting hit, but it doesn't mean you don't get hit.
Right.
And so I realized I was having some issues. And so they went through some testing. They found some issues. Like I had problems in the dark when it was dark out. I had hard times negotiating, like walking a straight line. And it would be like I was drunk. And, and anyway, so, they saw this, they saw these issues, blah, blah, blah. And then they were like, yeah, we can treat this. So I got treated and those issues went away. And, like that old saying, nothing more zealous than a convert. And, so I'm like, this is awesome. So I started, gearing some of my after studies to looking at this. And then they approached me because I had helped them, like they had their doctor staff like this, but they didn't know a lot about hormones, all this other stuff. And these guys were coming in with these, like, they were like, hey, what do you think of this? I was looking at these guys' blood work. I was like, oh my God. And I said, this is why they're having the issues. I mean, this is chemical, this is a lot of this is chemical. I mean, they need to get straightened out. And so they asked me, hey, would you be interested in working with our vet program on this? Because none of the doctors at the time were vets or served in the military. And even though I had been working with the Navy, and particularly like mostly the special warfare guys, like the SEALs and the EOD guys and guys like that, for years. And so I knew a lot of these guys. In fact, like this, like I walked in there, my first day as a clinician, I walked in there and there was like 3 guys that I knew from like 1999. I was like, oh my God, it was great. And, and so it was interesting because then I was a defensive tactics instructor. Now I'm like, all right, what you got to do for your brain, which is kind of interesting, but interesting dynamic. Right. And so I got back, so I got back into more, doing, figuring out problem. It's more interesting. Being a clinician is more interesting to me because I like the challenge of like, I love it. Like when one of my nurse practitioners calls us and goes, hey, I can't figure out what's going on. I'm like, oh, okay. I got you. I'm like, I love it. Okay, good. The problem is I give them way too much information. That's what I got to worry about. But I enjoy that challenge. You know what I mean? And to be honest, man, it's like I said, I prefer helping people versus hurting them,
So as you've gone into that, how did you and Boomer come across each other?
Well, we met each other years and years ago when we both worked for Larry, and then
where people don't know
I'm sorry. There's a guy named Larry North who is a huge. He was a fitness influencer before that was a term,
right?
And he started a radio show that was very popular. He started gyms. He was actually brought the first personal training gym to Texas, and I worked for him then. I remember, of course, this is why, like I stay in my wheel well when it comes to this business, which is, doing therapies and whatnot. I don't try to explain to Boomer how to do marketing because that's what his wheel well is, and
not really,
but so I kind of know what I don't know. And so anyways, so it's like, dealing with, I was just very good at being I wasn't very good at running a business. You know what I mean? And so, so what ended up happening was, my medical director was having some, he's a good guy. He was a good guy. And his business was just floundering, because doctors, we tend to be very good at doing medicine, but we're not trying to be good business. And so there was an introduction to some people, and that's how I did it. It's like I suggested to that these guys help because they had a consulting business, and somebody had told me about them. And then so this Dr. Shelton said, "Hey, do you know this guy?" No, I don't know him, but at the time he didn't really tell me who you guys were. But then I said, I think it's a good idea. So then we started talking on stuff, and we just doing stuff. And then him and another friend of his and former business partner named Clay, super smart guys, very motivated, stuff like this. And so I was like, all right, I got some other ideas. And so really what it was is we had these other ideas to start this clinic. There was some people that wanted to, with some money, they wanted to start clinics. So I was like, I need you guys to come aboard. So we got together working on that. That deal didn't end up going on. And they ended up kind of doing their own thing, and I ended up doing my own thing. And then just the opportunity came about later on, that we had an opportunity to, collab together because, what he does real well, complements what I do real well, because I can't do what he does and he can't do what I do. And so it works real well like that. And really what it, to be honest, what it does, it makes a great product for people. To be honest, it's like, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you can't get it out to people, then, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
And you could be the greatest marketer in the world, but if you don't get results for people, that's going to kill your business too.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so really what we do is we have the capacity of doing both. You know what I mean? We're very, very conscious and very, I don't know, maybe we're intentional of the people that we hire, the people that we have in there, it's like they, we want people that care about people. We want people, I want our staff somewhat emotionally involved with the people. I want them to understand, that, why this person might be feeling this way, right? Why? Because you're going to be more sympathetic to it. You're going to work harder for it. You know what I mean? You like this, and really, that's what we want to do. We want to be your champion. We want people to come up and give us high fives because they feel a million times better, or we fix some issue with them. And so we relied a lot on how our thought processes work and the type of people we want to be. We both have very strong spiritual bases in our lives. We have that's centered around like a lot of people, and it's not criticism, it's just an observation, is that a lot of people, they want to put their spiritual practice in their lives. They just don't know how to do it, right? And so they'll have really good Sundays. Everyone has a good Sunday, right? Like this. But it's, and then your Monday's like this, and then it just kind of, boom. And, that's you're missing out. I feel like people are really missing out when you don't, when you can align yourself intellectually, emotionally, and physically and spiritually, you can get that alignment. You can get some of that aligned. You're light years ahead of just about everybody else in life. And that's kind of like,
so I'll piggyback on that a minute because, first of all, I 100% agree with you on that. So to kind of go back to a question you asked about, how and when did we meet? I mean, we go back, it was actually the summer of 96. So we're 30 years ago, man, crazy, right? And like you said, we both worked for a guy named Larry North, great dude, and still around today. We had lunch with him not too long ago. Great dude. And it was a little bit serendipitous because Guy had his studio at a different Larry North location. I was working at another one, but my manager at the time said, "Hey, we got to go to this other location. I need your help with some stuff." I'm like, "Why is he choosing me? I'm a nobody over here, So, but I went over there, and that's how I ended up. As Larry's walking me in, he goes, "Oh, I want you to meet Guy Mezger." And I thought, Guy Mezger. Why do I know that name? And turns out, he's the MMA guy. So go in and I met him for the first time, and it was really interesting because it was a little bit. I didn't realize it till later, but I remember thinking it's probably like a couple of years later. Even I thought, I think there was a reason that we met that day. I don't know what that is. Like I don't know what it is, but there was a reason we met that day. And then he decided not to invite me to Japan to go to his matches. And so we kind of lost touch there for a while. And
dude, that was back before they had text messaging.
Right, yeah, right. We didn't have cell phones back then, right? Well, we did.
A pigeon, you didn't get it.
We called them mobile phones. They came in suitcases. So anyway, yeah. So fast forward, it's funny. So my former business partner and I, we're starting to work like he was saying with this Dr. Shelton. Great dude, actually. He gets a bad rap, but he's actually a really good dude. And his phone's ringing one day. We're in there talking. He's in his office, and Shelton's looking down his phone. He goes, "Oh, that's my buddy, the MMA fighter that's calling me. I'll have to call him back, I said, "Who's your buddy, the MMA fighter?" I said, "Is that Guy?" He goes, "Yeah, Guy Mezger. You know him?" I go, "Yeah, I know Guy Mezger.
Yeah.
What's he calling you for? Like, how do you know him?
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, he's a great dude, great friend. We're talking about doing some business stuff together." And I said, "You know what? I'm going to call him, and because I haven't seen him in forever, and we're going to go have coffee with him." So I think it was the next day. Clay and I shot down to Dallas and had coffee with him, and he was elated to know that we were working with Dr. Shelton and gonna get, because he was running a good clinic. He was not a good businessman, but he was running a good clinic. So we had to do some things with his business, and and then had an opportunity to kind of reinvent the wheel a little bit, and could not think of somebody that I wanted to do this more because in what we did, we talked about this the last time on the podcast. What I really want Dynamis to be known for is that warrior mentality. Well, warrior mentality doesn't mean you to go kill people. That's not what a warrior mentality is. It's really this persevering through no matter what, right? Like, hey, this is hard. This is tough. I'm getting older, whatever the case may be, but we're going to get through this, and failure is not an option. We're going to get through this. Right. And so I thought, man, who better to embody that spirit? Right.
Right.
And, but what Guy brings in, and I've introduced him to people this way. I've even talked to other people. And I'm telling you, I'm not saying this because, I really do mean this, right? You won't find somebody with a better heart and a better soul than this guy. You really won't. You really won't. And so I wanted, it's that perfect balance of what I wanted this company to be and what we want this company to be is we want to have that warrior mentality, but we also really and truly do care about people, right? One of the things I think that we did in the early days of the company, I don't think we did it wrong. I just think we didn't do it right, if that makes any sense. That it was a very transactional type relationship between the clinic and the patients. And I didn't, and sometimes that happens, but we got a lot of negative feedback on that. Oh, I felt like I was just kind of a number. I don't feel like you really want to help me, kind of thing. And we really don't want Dynamis to be that. We really want Dynamis. We want to develop a relationship with our patients. So that's why, Guy has a heart for going in and really taking a deep dive. Sometimes he'll say it. Sometimes he dives too deep into what a patient wants. But we want people to know that we are here to help them. And we want them to get the help that they really need. We don't want them just going, "Oh, I think I need XYZ." We're not we're not the cattle call place. That's not us, and we never will be. We want people to know that we really do genuinely care about them. We really do genuinely want to help them. And sometimes helping them means that we tell them no, right? Sometimes helping them means tell them, "I'm sorry, we're not the right people. We can't help you." Sometimes that's helping people, but that's really, really what we want this company to be. So, and it's getting there, man.
Well, yeah. Also too is like we want active interaction with our people, because if you were to come to us, like you were like complaining a little bit about like you're a guy, I got a little belly fat.
Spare tire over here.
Spare tire. We got. Okay. Well, all right. So the one thing is we'll sit down and explain to you, okay, this is what we can do for you chemically to do this, because everything comes down to some kind of chemical reaction in your body that's going to help facilitate some of this. But you can't do it. What we do is like, we try to explain this, like, we need you to be an active part of your health. You cannot be, and we really encourage, now some people won't be, it doesn't matter how much we try to encourage, but some of the stuff that we want to do, and, obviously, love to have you guys feedback on this, is we want to try to do a little bit more round tables with people. Because, the more that we can educate people, on stuff like, and it's not, and when I say educate people, it's not that deep dive stuff. I mean, let's say, so the Hippocratic Oath, okay, which is the oath that all health professionals take, you know what I mean? And basically do no harm. It was from a guy named Hippocrates. The Hippocratic Oath is a guy named Hippocrates. And he was a Greek physician at 500 BC, okay? And he basically formed 500 BC, he formed the moral backing and standards and health standards in which we use today. All right. He was a badass, and we might want to listen to him. Okay. Now we've kind of stayed away from his stuff, because he talks about things. This guy performed successful brain surgery at 500 BC. Okay. That would make him a badass. You might want to listen to that guy. Okay. And so the thing is, people want to make this more difficult, okay? But it really comes down to just a couple of different things. That you have to be active, all right? You need to have exercise. You need to have proper food, and you need to have rest. Those are the things that are going to make you healthy, all right? Now, our job is, how do we facilitate these for you? Because we're not in a perfect world anymore, all right? You need to have, like, I know people don't like, you need to have supplementation. Like, guys, just a simple multivitamin. Statistics show, they did a mega study that had tens of thousands of people involved. The median age was 70 years old. They were on a multivitamin. Now we're talking all kinds of multivitamins, good ones, bad ones, all kinds of stuff like that. Because most of you have to have a good supplier of supplements. Right? They tend to be shady, right? So it didn't matter. It was just they were on multivitamin supplement, and the median age was 70. That's what they could get. Literally 10,000 studies on this, and people had a 10% higher, they lived 10% longer, and they had a 10% higher brain function areas from just taking a multivitamin, right?
That's 70.
Simple as that, right? And we have to multiply, because again, today, like an example is, an organically grown apple today is 52% less nutritious than one that was grown in 1950. So people go, the old saying, eat an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, what are you going to eat, 2 apples? Then the problem with eating 2 apples is you get twice as much sugar and less nutrients, right? So, having supplementation, being woken up to the idea of supplementation, the idea of demystifying things like testosterone. Now everyone thinks, oh, testosterone, they got it so wrong, it's ridiculous, right? Testosterone, it helps build muscle and stuff like this, but it does more than that. They used to treat depression in the 50s with testosterone, and it worked. The SRIs came around, and they said, oh, we can make more money off that. And, people might actually commit suicide and other stuff like that. But hey, don't get in the way of the buck, and because testosterone is cheap, right? And so, but testosterone does more. I mean, it literally makes you who you are as a man, not because it, puts the muscle on you. No, it actually helps drive your sex drive. You need to have a certain amount of testosterone in order to hold a proper level of semen. You know what I mean? Even though there are 2 different functions, right? You know what I mean? There it is. It's going to help with bone density. It's going to help with heart issues. It's going to help with mental issues, emotional issues, stuff like this. Oh yeah. And it's also going to preserve your muscle. All right. Which again, what is becoming the number one indicator for longevity today is actual physical strength. It used to be like, blood pressure, all this, which are all very good markers. It's not that. But they can literally longevity to simple movements like grip strength, be able to squat down, be able to balance, doing strength things like this. In fact, we put together a program, and we're gonna have you guys put up. It's going to be like these 6 exercises with age ranges and what you should be. And if you can't do this at your age, then you need to do something about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of want to put it up there because I can make anything into a competition.
Oh yeah.
So I look at it, and I'm looking at it because I'm 58 years old. So I'm looking at the 50 year old. I'm like, I can crush all that requirement. So because I have excellent, good, average, and need improvement. So that way, different levels. So I'm excellent all the way through till I'm my 30s. And there's a couple ones in my 30s that I'm average. I have one that's below average, and I got 2 that are average. And my goal is to be excellent in all 30 of these at 30 years old, right? Yep. You know what I mean? And so we kind of want to make it into a game for people, but we want to educate people on the fact that something as simple as working out regularly, not even crushing yourself, but working out regularly, you should be able to do these things. If you can't do these things, you need to focus on these things because this is science. It's not my opinion that you get to live longer if you do this, right? And so, these are the kind of things that we want to be able to present to people. We want an educated patient client because we want them to be excited. We want you to go, hey, I want to do something different. I want to be healthier. I want to do this. Whatever it is that there is, because a big chunk is hormone balancing, but there's also we do a lot of weight loss stuff. We can do a lot of like some of the anti-aging for mitochondrial function, which mitochondria, for these who don't know, is the energy source in your cell. It's what creates the energy for you. And, so we want to do things like that. That works better. Your life works better. It actually extends your life. So these are the things that we're trying to create in here. So we want people asking us questions. We want to create a community for people because we want people who are active and to, we want people who want to do something about it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question.
We want them to be educated though, too, to interrupt you. But I mean, it's again, I feel it, well, for a lot of different reasons, that it's one of the things that this particular space of medicine is missing. And I would even use the term intentionally missing because he brought up the point a second ago, that SSRIs replace testosterone.
What are SSRIs?
Like they're like antidepressant medication. Yeah. Kind of stuff. So basically in kind of layman's terms, those types of medications replaced testosterone for, treating things like depression back in the 50s, like Guy was talking about. Why did it do that? Well, because the pharmaceutical companies realized they can make a lot more money off of doing that than treating it with something that would be, quote unquote, natural, like a testosterone replacement, right? Now, not to say that a lot of it didn't work, a lot of it did, but at the same time, we go back into like the negative side effect profile, where it actually caused more problems than it fixed. And that led to ultimately kind of this medically based society we have now. There are so many companies out there that are chasing the dollar and not chasing the education piece of this. So what they're seeing is, and what that's creating, we talked a little bit about this earlier, is kind of this transactional relationship between a clinic and a patient, where the patient's just being given 2 or 3 different types of medication. They don't even know necessarily why they're being given or what it's going to do because the clinic isn't educating them. They're just giving it to them because the clinic is making X amount of margin on making sure that the patient is on that particular medication or that particular product. And I'll be very honest. Early on in our business, not Dynamis, but in other businesses, we were probably guilty of the same thing. And I did not want to do that this time, right? It was very important to me that we have an educated patient base. And that's specifically because there are so many shady, what I would call gray market type companies out there, some of them black market, that are they have no interest in educating the patient or telling them why they need what they need. They just know these people are going on social media and reading something, God knows who put it out there. It's probably really bad. A lot of it is really bad, around a particular medication or a peptide or whatever the case may be, weight loss product, whatever. And so you have these gray market company and black market companies that are out there selling these things. And first of all, they're probably selling a really shady product. They're coming from China or India someplace. They're not even coming from an actual US-based manufacturer or compounded pharmacy. So literally you have no clue what you're putting in your body, but there's no education component. You have no reason. You don't know why you're putting it in your body. We don't want that, man. We would never ask somebody to do that. I mean, so it's really interesting. I was able to monitor a lot of the calls from this week even. And even this week, I was blown away by how many patients would come to us and they're on the wrong product. They're on the wrong dosing. They've never been educated as to how to dose. I mean, one gentleman we talked to this past week, in fact, I think it was 2 days ago. I forget what clinic he came from, but they didn't educate him on how to do any of it. He was dosing literally like 1/10 of what he should be. And he could not understand why his hormone levels would not get up. He was convinced that testosterone replacement just wasn't working for him. And our provider dug into it and kept him on the phone probably longer than she needed to, but really did a good job in helping him understand, hey, you don't have a testosterone. Testosterone is going to work for you. What your previous clinic did was not educate you on how to dose this and how to take it appropriately. He was taking it completely off schedule. When he did, I mean, he was basically wasting his money because he was getting no effect from it whatsoever. He'd been doing this for 2 years and could not understand why his levels could not increase. Yeah. You know, and that's a good example of, and that's a pretty basic example, but it's a good one of what it is that we try to do. We really try to come and educate our patient. There's a lot of really bad information out there. We talked about this last time. There's a lot of bad information, and specifically around peptides, right? People don't understand, a lot of them don't understand how and why peptides work the way that they do or what they're specifically intended for. They're being mismarketed as an energy supplement. They're not. There's some that may do that, but that's not what they're designed to do. Some of them are being, marketed as a weight loss supplement. Well, there are peptides for that, but there are some out there that are being labeled as a weight loss supplement. They're not a weight loss supplement. If it's used correctly, that might actually happen, but that's not what it's designed to do. There's so much bad information out there around all these products. And our mission is to really filter a lot of that out.
Yeah. And even this too, like if you think about what's good out there, right? There's this miracle drug of the GLP-1s that a lot of people are taking. They're going and taking a shot. They're not working out. They're not doing things, and they are losing, right? And they're losing weight. So that's good for a community, but also bad for a community when you go, hey, there's these other things you need to do, but you also need to add X, right? Because the lines become blurred.
Well, yeah. The main problem, I was not a huge fan of GLP-1s when they first came out, mainly because the idea that you can just take something and lose weight. There's no free rides. Guys, just so you know, in life, no free rides, okay? That stops at about 6 years old, okay? When mom and dad start monetizing what it's going to take to do that, all right? That stops. There's no free rides, okay? And with your health, there's no free rides, right? All right? It's not a difficult ride. Eat reasonably well. If you eat 60, 70% healthy, you're going to be in an amazing place. You work out 2 to 3 times a week. We're talking less than 30 minutes a day. You're going to be in a much better place. Would I suggest you do more? Yes. Would I suggest you eat 80% correct? Yes. Okay. All right. Your sleep, if you're getting, a good solid 6 hours and then another 2 hours of less, you're probably going to do okay. All right. It's very difficult to full 8 hours, especially the older you get. But these are things that work, and they're built in science. The problem with a lot of stuff that goes on, and the problem with these influencers and stuff that they're here, is some of them are very good, all right, and they use science. Other of them are just pulling these numbers out of their butts, and telling people, and it's a little frustrating because I'll talk to somebody because so the interesting is that certain therapies and medicines work differently on other people. Like, it's like, we have a patient who takes nobody would suggest that he takes this little of testosterone. They'd be like, no way he's getting results, but he does. All right. So would it behoove him to have literally he takes about 50% of what a starting dose would be, not even like an eventual dose, but a starting dose. And he's been doing it for, 10 years now. And he's unbelievably successful with it. Right. So the thing about what you have to do is so we need, we can't be a cookie cutter. Our business is not a cookie cutter business. we changed up the way we deal with stuff. Like you say, is instead of like selling products like this, we literally have, we refer to them as coaches now. Like we have health coaches that will, that monitor, like, let's say I was a health coach. I had you 3 guys. These are my things. I would understand what's going on. And that way, you talk to me about something, I can relate that information, to, do I need to let Guy know about this because of this? Or should I like Tori, you know what I mean? At this. And so, because what we want to do is, like it says, we again, the education process, but again, we understand that not everybody's going to be the same. You may work real well on testosterone and you may work really well on Clomid, right? You know what I mean? So,
or even a lower dose. I mean,
or lower dose.
I'll tell you what, man. One of the biggest things that we're up against is this thought process. I mean, typically,
more is better. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the typical kind of male mentality, right? Well, what 1 was really good, so 2 must be better, and 3 must be even way better than that. And it's not the case, right? I mean, there's so many people, and women sometimes too, but this is more men that come to us, and they're telling us, oh no, I've got to have minimum 600 milligrams of testosterone a week. I mean, I'm like, whoa. I mean, no, 600 milligrams. First of all, who in the world put you on 600 milligrams? Because that's malpractice. I mean, there's nobody.
You get your license yanked for that,
right? I mean, but
they do it.
Yeah, the minimally effective dose, right? We don't need that. I mean, there's so many examples out there of people who have been given bad information, either the wrong information or overprescribing, right? Like a 45-year-old male that comes to us that swears he needs 600 milligrams has been lied to. He doesn't need 600 milligrams. He probably doesn't even need solid 200, although 200 would be about baseline. So that's the kind of stuff that we cipher through, and that we really try to educate our patient on. And I tell you, it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they are just convinced they've got to have their 600 milligrams. But a lot of times we can talk them off that ledge and go, no, not only do you not need it, here's why literally your body right now at 50 years old can't handle it, right? You don't even have enough receptor sites to accept that much. You think you feel better because your numbers are up, but your numbers are up in spite of your 600 milligrams, and here's why, right? And we walk them through that educational process and show them, hey, you don't even have to spend as much money because we're not going to prescribe as much, but here's why you don't need it. Physiologically, here's why you don't need it. And then you can kind of see that aha moment of, oh, wow, okay, yeah, that does make sense. And they come back to us in their follow-up visits and go, wow, thanks. Not only have I saved money, but I'm not having to stick myself as much, and my numbers are still up there. I still feel as good. So, that's probably one of the number one things we're up against, is convincing people why they don't have to be on so much stuff.
Yeah. And the problem is too, is that everybody has the AI now. And the main problem with AI is that unless you give the exact real prompts that you need, this is what I'm finding out about it. All it's going to do is yank stuff off the internet. So what it's going to do is going to yank off the most looked at stuff in the internet, right? Well, there's going to be those influencers and stuff like that are telling you that, yeah, you need to do 400 milligrams or 600 milligrams of testosterone. Yeah. When you're like, no, you don't. You know what I mean? And so, we combat that a little bit. I mean, and that's usually why those are usually the phone calls I have with patients is, because I have a rougher bedside manner than anybody else. And I'm just like, Kyle, I go, no, that's dumb. What? No, that's stupid. I don't know who told you that. Let me guess, you got off GP. No, I did. Yeah, you did. Because that's where it came from. Yeah. And I go, let me tell you why that's okay. All right, let's sit down and explain why that's not the case. Okay. And, and then so, and then they'll kind of go, you can tell that they, God forbid actually makes sense, right? You know what I mean? To somebody who's convinced that they're making more sense, and then they suddenly realize it. And that's really what we want to do because, I mean, again, mostly men. Yeah, it's mostly men. In fact, I've never really met a woman that had a problem with that, like that, this, but yeah, they think more is better. And to be honest, it's about balance. You know what I mean? Think about everything in life. Everything in life is about balance. You work too much, it affects your health. It affects your marriage. It affects all sorts of other stuff like that, right? So what is the big, thing now is about balance, right? That's the big, thing everybody's looking for. And listen, everybody has their own definition of it. You know what I mean? I like working, like this, I have, 2 jobs that I love. I love being a Dynamis health professional there. I love helping people like that. I find it exciting. It gets, it's my way. it's like how I get the fight again, because I go in there and I try to figure it out. And it's a victory when I get somebody going like this. And then of course, I still own gyms, I mean, I know the value that brought to my life, you know what I mean? And so, it's like, I don't actually see myself retiring. I might slow down a bit, but I don't see myself retiring, necessarily, because I love what I do and I have balance. I'm very fortunate. I have an amazing wife and great kids. I don't know why I got such great kids, because I was not such a great kid.
Maybe because you have a good wife.
Yeah, but it is. And so, so I look at, like, tell people all the time, it's like, we look for these, various balances, and most of us don't. And so the problem is that a lot of people, they want shortcuts. And that's the main problem that we deal with, the mentality of, the thing is that everything's about a hack.
Right.
I mean, 15-minute hack to figuring out AI, 30 days to 15-inch arms, like this. Well, okay, none of that shit works. I mean, no, that's BS, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, so the fact of the matter is like, people want stuff like boom, 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 boom. Right? You know what I mean? And that's not the way it works. You spend 30 years of your life not doing much physically and all this other stuff. And then suddenly within 6 months, you want to drop 30 pounds and put on 20 pounds of muscle that you never had. That's just not going to happen. It doesn't matter how much drugs you do. Okay. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. All right.
Let's talk about this for a second. We got about 10 or 15 minutes left.
Okay.
Let's do, because this is such a hot topic, and we talked about testosterone for a minute, and let's talk about peptides.
Okay.
Give me Peptides 101 for the laymen that are out there, because you hear about the varieties, you hear about what's out there, you hear about US versions and European versions, and just give me a quick overview of each.
Want me to do that?
Have at it.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So what peptides are, guys? So what peptides are amino acid chains. Okay. All right. So, and so what these peptides do is that they link them together. All right. In a certain way. And what it'll cause is a signaler in your body to have a physiological response. Okay. So the peptides themselves are not what's going to, actually, when you put testosterone in, it's that testosterone you're putting in your body that's actually doing the work. When you put the peptide in, what it's doing is telling your body to go do something. All right. So that's what people need to understand.
Passing a note.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is a signaler. So it's going to go in, it's going to tell, it's going to hit a receptor, and that receptor, depending on what it is that you're doing, is going to, cause a physiological response, which is, by the way, real healing. Okay. All right. So, like I tried saying, it's like, that's real healing, because the only thing that heals the body, and again, comes all the way back to Hippocrates again. He said, the only thing that heals the body is the body itself. And it's true. You think about medicines that fix things, like, there's very few. Most of them fix symptoms. But antibiotics do. Antibiotics actually kills bacteria. But your body has antibiotics, right? It just tend to be that we take bad care of ourselves, and so we need, it gets overwhelmed, so you need that. So that's a medicine that actually fixes something. See, the beautiful part about peptides, the peptides is making your body work better. Okay? All right. Now, there are peptides, like, I think these are all tend to be horribly misunderstood, but the ones that I think are like super, super important is going to be like this BPC 157, the one that I did, because it's a definite healer.
Oh, yeah.
You can take it on various levels to either actually physically help repair like a torn muscles, injuries. It can be used to reduce inflammation from working out, so there's all sorts of ways that you can use it. I think, that's a phenomenal one. That does.
Another one, CJC.
Yeah. And the CJC, and okay, so there's, I like the CJC 1295 and ipromolin. All right. And so those are referred to as secretagogues. And so what that means, it makes your body secrete something. And in this case, growth hormone. Okay. And, growth hormone is your base hormone. It's your mother hormone. All the good stuff comes from your growth hormone. And so this helps increase that. And so like with the CJC, the mistake that most people make with the CJC is that it is what it actually does is it causes the body to produce more growth hormone. And the ipromolin, what the ipromolin does is it prolongs how long you release growth hormone. So you take them together. One causes more growth hormone to release. The other one extends the amount of time. All right. And again, it's okay. So the thing about it is that the mistake people make is that they don't go first get tested properly to find the way we measure growth hormone is through what's called IGF-1, insulin growth factor 1. It's the microbiome of growth hormone. We can't actually measure growth hormone. We can measure the microbiome of it. And so that's how we tell if it's working or not. Right. And so the problem is people do this and they do this. And so they think it's going to be a miracle worker. I'm going to take this and I'm going to have the growth hormone because if I have a lot of growth hormone, I'm going to be leaner and I'm going to sleep better and I'm going to, I'm going to be able to maintain more muscle. Yeah. If you decide to go to bed at 10 o'clock, you'll get more sleep. You still can't go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and expect to get up at 6 and go and run and gun. That's what people don't realize. All right. Does it help you learn fat? Yes, because what it does, it helps you utilize your nutrients at a much more efficient rate. All right. So yes, it's very effective on that. Okay. But that means you got to eat something besides peanut butter and jelly and Doritos. Okay. All right. So it's not a miracle worker, it can do some stuff. And so that's again, part of the education part of what we do is like, hey, we want to tell you why these peptides are going to work. This is how it works. Now you do your end, okay? Because it's a simple injection. You take it before you go to bed. It's going to have all these good things, but you need to still do your side of stuff. And that's really where most people are missing out on some of the stuff. But I think like the CJC, the ipromolin, the BPC, there's the GHK, which is a copper peptide, really good stuff. Like GHK is going to be really good for skin, stuff like this, but it's good for wound healing, and things like that. Big fan of these mitochondrial peptides. And there's 3 of them I'm going to go through. One's called FOX4. And what FOXO4 does is it cleans out sentient cells. Sentient cells are cells that have replicated that aren't so much that they're no longer of any use. And our body gets rid of them. But as we get older, we have a much harder time with that. And so what this does is clear that out. And I'll tell you something, guys, from a personal experience on this, I was amazed. I thought, okay, I'm going to take this and I know it's working. It's like if you take a statin, statin lowers your cholesterol, but you don't feel any different. Yeah. Right? You know what I mean? But it is lowering your cholesterol. So, okay, I know the FOX4 because I've read the science on it. It's got seriously good, solid science behind it. I'm going to go, all right, it's going to work. But holy smokes, man. I literally I kept checking my weight. I go, I got to be at least 20 pounds lighter. I mean, I couldn't believe it. My energy levels were like, I was like, wow, man, this is amazing. I became a huge fan of it. I will say, guys, the nice part about Dynamis and working with me in particular is that I am a total
guinea pig
geek when it comes to this stuff. And I also am a guinea pig because what I want to be able to give you guys is not only do I'm going to give you the science because I'm a geek who gets into the science. So I'll be able to give you the science, why it's working, why it's working. But then a lot of them I'm going to know because I also use them myself. And I go, because then I give people, okay, here's my personal experience. Here's the science. Here's my personal experience. And that way people can get kind of gauge and I can also gauge on what's going to go. But the FOX4 is a great one. There's another one called SS31. SS31 is a little on the expensive side, but what that does is that repairs the mitochondria. Okay. Yep. And which is super important because we have a ton of mitochondrial dysfunction. Yeah. I mean, every one of us, as Nazi as I am about my health, I have mitochondrial dysfunction, okay? And so it is, everyone does, right? So that helps fix that. And then there's one called MOTC, which is like putting a turbocharger on the engine, And so really, so what we do is we work, we have a whole therapy based on the stuff. And so it's phenomenal. And I'll tell you something, man, your energy levels, and when I say energy levels, it's not energy like caffeine, but just your ability to go. Like I was telling you, like I always get the, crashes around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, when I take the FOX4, when I take the MOTC, it's like, no, I don't have that.
Right. But that's also a good example too, of where there's some misinformation out there because so many people are jumping right to the MOTC. Well, you could do that, but you're not going to get the full effect or nearly the bang for your buck.
And you can get a negative effect. It's not super harmful, but you won't feel good. You won't feel good.
Right. And it's not like to the point. I've seen a lot of advertisements out there around MOTC being advertised as an energy supplement. It's not an energy supplement. will it do that? Yes, but to market it like that is irresponsible because that's not what it's designed to do.
So the problem is like what people call energy is caffeine. Okay, so because they get that wired thing. Well, okay, so what caffeine does is you have these receptors, adenosine receptors. Okay, adenosine is what helps you sleep. So you have these receptors here like this. Okay, and so what happens? Adenosine comes in, sits here like this, and now you get sleepy and you go to bed. What caffeine does, caffeine sneaks in and attaches to those receptors, so adenosine doesn't get in there. So what it does, it's causing your body to feel more awake because it's getting rid of the chemical that would put you to sleep. So it's not really energy. Okay, just so you know, that's caffeine. That's why you get the wired feeling like that. Okay, now things like Matsi and stuff like that, they're not going to give you that wired feeling like this. What they're going to do is they're going to ATP is your body's energy. Okay. All right. It's part of a thing called the Krebs cycle. And so what happens is your body produces ATP. You breathe, you lift, you do whatever that burns ATP. ATP comes ADP. It goes through the cycle, turns back into ATP. That's called the Krebs cycle. Then that's the cycle goes. And the beautiful part about something like Matsi SS31 is that it speeds that up. So yes, it does. It gives you real energy, like energy to like lift weights, energy to run, energy to think, stuff like this. Caffeine doesn't really give you that. It gives you the awake feeling, so you'll be more motivated to do stuff like that. But it's not real energy, right? Versus this being real energy. I mean, like okay, just on the Fox 4 when doing like this again. That one guy was bragging, talking about he's a former Navy SEAL. In fact, he's an amazing Navy SEAL because he went through BUD/S at 39. He's like a legend. Everybody in the team knows this gentleman. All right. And, and so he is my number one guy. I mean, literally he's always, what do you got for me now? But he did the Fox 4. He knocked off, 20 minutes in a 10-mile run. That he normally do. He goes, yeah, I couldn't believe it. I just didn't get tired. Now, granted, he's a freak of nature, so, I mean, not everybody's going to be like that, but that's the result that comes from something like this. Now that's real energy. That's a real result. You could take a ton of caffeine. You're not gonna knock off 20 minutes on a 10-mile run.
But you are gonna crash.
Yeah, you are gonna crash. Yeah. But so that's the difference. So when they talk about it being mislabeled, it's not. It's actually misidentified because people look at energy being caffeine. It's not. Right? Yeah, it's your ability to get stuff, think things through, and so another caffeine has its place. I'm a big fan of caffeine. It's just that it's it's not, caffeine gets villainized a little bit too much, but it's good stuff. It just needs to be used properly, just like anything else. And so things like that, so the big ones that I was again, Ipromolin, CJC, BPC. There's another one called TB500, which is good, similar to BPC. That's a really good one to do. We have, again, the Fox 4 for sentient stuff. There's a ton of really good ones.
We got a full menu of them. And
there's honestly,
there's
5 or 6. It's like, oh, this one's great too. And this one's great too.
I mean, there's really not many we don't have or can't get our hands on. I mean, but again, to Guy's point is we actually know the science behind these things. We actually know why they work and why you should or should not be on them. I mean, if for lack of a better term, just to put it very simplistically, what these peptides will do if used and well monitored, but if used correctly and appropriately, is at 50 years old or 55 years old, it'll make your cells function as if they were 18, 19 years old again, right? The way that we functioned at 18 years old, the way that we got over injury, we could twist our knee or turn our ankle or something like that, and we were fine in 2 or 3 days, where now it's like 2 or 3 weeks and we can still feel, because our body's healed as perfectly as they were ever going to heal from a natural standpoint occurred between the ages of 18 and 25 years old. It's not going to occur at 55 years old anymore, right? So that's what these things do. They go back in and it's just a little, to his point, it's telling the cells what to do and how to function properly like they did in your earlier years, right? Now, it doesn't last all that long, which is why we have to take them in some cases every day, some cases maybe once a week, whatever. It depends on the product itself, right? It's a phenomenon. I said 10 years ago that peptides were going to be the future of medicine. And not only was I right, we're here now. I think it's actually been here longer than I'm even saying it has been. But the future of medicine is now. I mean, these things have been studied overseas for a long time, right? But it's here. And we have access to good ones, not shady ones, not gray market ones, not black market ones. Stay away from that.
Pharmaceutical grade.
Pharmaceutical grade. You want it from a compounding pharmacy based in the U.S. that is inspected by the FDA, inspected by the state licensing board. That's what you want. You don't want these things offline. I cannot tell you, you don't want these things offline.
Yeah, man. A lot of people do, and you're talking about a crapshoot. You know.
Yep.
You know, I mean, at worst, nothing's going to happen. You know, or at best, nothing's going to happen. You know, I mean, at best, it works. But yeah, good luck. And you know, next best is that doesn't do any harm.
Yeah.
And then, but the problem is that, you know, if these guys are willing to sell you false stuff and lie to your face like this, you think they're really going to be like using a clean room to make this stuff?
No.
Right.
Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, and so you want to be conscientious of that. You know, peptides, you know, it's really a great education process. Again, like a big thing, problem with like the CJC and stuff like this is that people go, I'm going to take that to raise my testosterone. Well, it could. Not a real efficient way to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's other medications that's the job. And then they go, well, I don't want to get on it. Why? Because they don't know, right?
Yeah,
right.
You know, they don't know any better. You know, their friend told them something like this. And, you know, and so, you know, and sometimes I get a little frustrated with the medical field because, you know, a lot of these guys, they don't continue to educate themselves you know, on the thing. And so the problem that we deal with is, you know, like 349 being okay, so this is the big quandary that we'll have. Okay, so they'll look the board that handles the national organization for, I don't know the name of it, but for endocrinology. Okay.
Oh yeah.
They go 349 to 1200 is the testosterone range. Okay. And they endorse that. Now the AMA, they're not even doctors anymore. Okay. They're just a bunch of lawyers. I mean, a bunch of politicians. Okay. You know, and even they admit through science that having a serum testosterone level lower than 500, you have a 35% higher chance of a heart attack or stroke. Okay. So why 500 is not the minimum?
Yeah.
When even guys who aren't doctors anymore are willing to go, this is what it needs to be.
Right.
You know, I'm like going, I literally would run my head into the wall, your brick wall over there, because how stupid can we be?
Right.
But this is what we deal with. We deal with this misinformation, and that's from the medical world. Even though scientifically they argue with each other all the time. I mean, urologists will argue with the endocrinologists about this all the time. I mean, you want to hear funny stories. Oh yeah, I talked to him about whatever, right? You know what I mean? I get it. It's funny. Well, not funny. It's pathetic actually. But the sad part is like you need to have, you know, understand the education level. You understand what's going on, and that's really what we do. And that's really what I do. I tell people all the time. It's like the difference between a lot of these guys is that when you were let's say you were a doctor, you went through medical, you actually had to go through. You had to learn how to do stitches. You learned how to diagnose a cold, all this other stuff like this. I didn't do that. You know what I did? I worked on metabolic function. That's all I did. That was my PhD was in dealing with that. That's all I worked on. Okay. I did not work on how to fix the common cold. Do I know how to fix the common cold? Yeah, because I'm a naturopathic doctor too, and we do that. All right. But that's not really my specialty. All right. You don't come to me for the cold. You don't come to me for a broken arm. Right. You don't come to me because, you know, this. You come to me so you don't get a broken arm. Because I'm going to make your bone density stronger through you know, whatever.
Well, that's what we do at Dynamis, man. So we are about preventative medicine. Okay. This whole society for the last, since Rockefeller did it, man, we have been conditioned to treat sick medicine. Wait till the condition happens. Wait till you get sick, then go treat it with something after that. Right. We have the exact opposite. It should be, but we have the exact opposite mindset at Dynamis is don't get sick. Okay. We don't treat sick medicine because we don't want our patients to get sick. Come to us so you don't get sick. Come to us so that you don't get that disease. Right. Peptides are just a part of what we do. It's a big part of what we do. It's a very famous part of what we do, and we do it well. We do it better than anybody else, but we treat wholly and completely the entire person. Each person is different, and we do it preventatively so that you don't get sick. Come to us so you don't. We're not interested in cough and cold, man. We want you. We want you disease free, and we want you healthy. We want you living a long time, and we want you living a really, really active and healthy lifestyle, a holistic lifestyle. So that's what we do.
Well, tell me this too. Let's say I'm just anybody that walks in the room. I got time for this, August? let's say I'm just anybody that walks in the room and I feel like I need to make a step into peptides because I've heard it, I've seen it online, my people have talked about it or whatever. What about you guys do I sign up with, and how do I do that? And what makes you different than other people?
So how would you get started with us?
How would you get started? And then what's the process as it goes through?
Yeah.
And then why are you guys different?
So, okay. So one of the very first ways that we're different, I'll address that first, is I have created a business model where the barrier to entry is virtually nothing. Okay. We make it very easy. We don't collect money from you up front. We're not asking for you to pay anything up front. Okay. We charge for coaching programs, right? But that's on the backside after you've gotten integrated with one of our health coaches, one of our providers. Then we'll start talking about cost then. So there's no barrier to entry. You go to our website, it's www.dynamisonline.com. You could click, well, there's a lot of buttons you could click, but if you want to just start learning about it, click, there's book an appointment with, or it's actually called book a kickoff call. And you'll actually be put in touch with one of our health coaches that will explain the process to you, explain what we do. This is a free call. I mean, we don't charge anything. You spend your time. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get signed up, we'll get you signed up right then and there. If you need labs, we'll get a lab order out for you. We can use any lab that you want to use. It doesn't matter. We're agnostic to that. We just want you to come over here and start getting some good information, because odds are you've gotten some bad information. So we make it really easy to sign up. There's no barrier to entry. No other company can really say that. I mean, any other company you go to, they're going to want hundreds of dollars up front for a lab. They're going to want hundreds of dollars up front for a provider visit. You're $600 or $700 into it before you've even spoken to a provider or talked about a single symptom or looked at a single lab result.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do any of that. We've collected nothing from you until you get to that appointment, right? And we're going to spend at least 20 minutes with you too in that in that first initial coaching call, sometimes longer depending upon what type of patient we have, right? Sometimes a guy will get involved and we'll turn a 20 or 30 minute phone call into an hour-long session if that's what he has to do, because that's what we do for our people. We really and truly do want to help people, because I believe that we do have, there's a segment of the population that really needs and wants that educational piece, but there's also that same segment who has been given bad information and bad education and bad treatment, and I would say malpractice. There's a lot of that going on. And that's one of the things that's probably the primary thing that we try to address. So you go online, you book a call, or if you want to get signed up, you can also get signed up right there online too. We send you the lab result. You'll have a 20-minute provider phone call. They'll determine what type of program you want to go with. Are you a weight loss patient? Are you a hormone patient? Are you a thyroid patient? Are you a peptide patient? Whatever. We treat all of it, right? And then at that point, the cool thing about how we work is you don't go with anything you don't agree with, right? Now, the provider may say, I want you on these programs, and you may decide to go with it, but you can tweak it. You can add and take away, with provider approval, whatever you want. You can make your program your own. We're not a cookie cutter. Guy talked about that earlier, right? We're not going to just give you the same 3 products like 90% of these wellness clinics are going to do. We really and truly do tailor it to you.
Yeah. Plus, what we want to do too, and I think this is a little different with a lot of stuff, is that, there's certain baselines that we want to work with. Okay? Like, okay, a big deal with women, which sounds funny, is that actually low testosterone. Now, women don't need much testosterone, but they need it. And so they start losing their testosterone, usually because they're not working out and things like that, but they start doing that, and then they start putting on weight. That's what happens. So they immediately want to go into a GPL one, right? You know what I mean? And then we're looking at them and we're like, okay, that's probably not a bad suggestion, depending on where they are weight-wise, right? Depending, like if they're really, okay, yeah. But let's say that they're 15, 20 pounds overweight, but their testosterone's in the tank. And we'll go, hey, listen, instead of doing that, let's put you on some testosterone or a medication that raises your testosterone, whether it is, because that will, I said, first of all, if we put you on a GPL, it'll work so much better. All right. Like night and day difference. Because you can be on a GPL and and your testosterone's low, all you're going to lose mostly is muscle. All right. And so the fact is like, what we want to do is we want to get you base, so like one of the things is that we seriously personalize it. Like an issue, like the example I'm using is like, hey, let's put you on a testosterone or something that raises your testosterone, depending on what we feel like you need. And then go, let's get that up to a good level. Okay. And that'll take about 3 months. All right. And then from there, all right, then let's make a more educated decision if you really need to be on GPL, because in that 3 months, did you lose weight? Okay, yeah, I lost about 3 or 4 pounds. Well, we only need to lose about, 15, 20 pounds. You could probably, do that with just a little bit of exercise instead of doing the GPL-1. Or we'll go, hey, you're a little bit heavier on this. Let's put you on GPL-1. But now we understand how that's actually going to work better to preserve that muscle. And of course, the problem with most GPL-1s is that the doctors don't tell them, oh yeah, you need to work out. Because keeping muscle, especially in a diet restriction, is hard. Oh yeah. Because your body, in order to, your body, your body, it's a pain in the butt to produce the muscle. It's a pain in the butt to produce the chemicals, especially as you get older. Muscles like this. And so what ends up happening is what they're doing is they use these GPL-1s. And so the big thing, the problem with GPL-1s is, one, it messes with your thyroid. 2, it obviously messes with your hunger. So you got to make sure you're eating good. All right. 3, there's no stimulus to save that muscle if you don't work out. So you need to have something for your thyroid, something for your digestion, because the digestion slows down. So you got to make sure that you don't get your lower intestine clogged up. You need to have essential amino acids, because all protein breaks down to amino acids. Your 9 essential amino acids, that's just those of you guys don't know, 9 amino acids are the amino acids you have to bring in from food. Those are essential, okay? You can't get them any other way but through food or supplementation, all right? Now, non-essential are ones that your body makes itself, usually through other aminos or enzymes, okay? So you need those, okay? So what happens is you take those essential amino acids. Why? Because it feeds the muscle directly. There's no calories or anything, but it helps preserve that muscle. Working out preserves the muscle. The essential amino acids help save that muscle. You get something for your thyroid again, because again, if you mess your thyroid up, you can do all the GPLs you want. You're not going to lose weight. Right. All right. So you need to keep that going like this. And so there's things that they do that they do not tell you. The doctors generally don't tell you to do. But we insist, like, hey, if you're doing a GPL, any kind of GPL-1 like this, you need to have these, because it's going to.
Or to your point, let's look at your thyroid and hormones first.
Yeah. And we always look at the markers first. So we look at your hormones and believe it or not, your thyroid. Actually, hormone based too. It's just no one ever call it. When people think hormones, they think estrogen, they think progesterone, they think testosterone. But TSH is a hormone. It's your thyroid stimulating hormone. There's other ones too. There's your T3 and T4. But so these are all very important things that you do. And again, so what we want to do is we go through the checklist first. Because we go, okay, so it may be just like, hey, again, if your thyroid's a little sluggish, you're gonna have weight gain issues. Yeah. All right. So boom, a little testosterone, maybe a little bit of thyroid medicine, or maybe it's not that bad. You can get a thyroid supplement. It depends on, again, that's why you go to our practitioners, because they're really good at that. They'll be able to make a judgment and go, yeah, we probably could just use a supplement, or yeah, that's probably in the tank. We probably want to give you a few mics of Armor Thyroid or something, which is a really good thyroid medication. And so. So it's things like that you want to be able to do, and so that's the difference, is that we're not gonna pile this stuff on you. We're gonna put the stuff together that's gonna work. Okay, this makes sense. And sometimes making sense is, hey, we're just gonna correct your hormones, and let's see where that goes from there. Now, oftentimes you want to have some. You want some combination of things, and that's easily tell. Like if your thyroid's low, if your TSH is high, that means your thyroid's not working well. All right. And if your testosterone's low, well, those should both be corrected at the same time. We shouldn't do one and the other. Those both should need to be corrected at the same time. Yeah. Right. Things like that. And then we're like, all right, so if you want to do that, so what we want to do is, like, the thing is that we want to do is that, for lack of better terms, we're chefs and we're creating a masterpiece meal. If you put too much salt or you put too many spices, it ruins the food sometimes, right? You know what I mean? So we don't want to do that. We want to add it as needed. And and I just think it's more ethical based. Yeah, 100%. Medicine, but, and it's just stuff because, again, there's, my opinion, not so much the doctors is the pharmaceutical and stuff. Just they're promoting stuff that I think is. They're over promoting.
Sure, they are. They just want to sell a product.
They want to sell a product.
They just want to sell a product.
Is it beneficial for you or not? Is it harmful for you or not? I'll be honest. I don't believe they have your best intentions.
They absolutely do not.
Well, fear and FOMO is what everyone kind of leans on for a lot of marketing plans and trying to get people to buy stuff. It's all about getting the dollar for a lot of people. But I'll just say this: like, I've really learned a lot in this episode, and I'd actually love to have you guys on again and not have to worry about the beginning story as we go through this. Now you guys are kind of in this. We can
I'll just tell funny fight stories.
Let's just jump into it going forward and start talking about.
We'll spend 5 minutes doing that.
We'll attack, different products, and it'd be kind of cool to kind of get you guys to be able to talk about these things are good and these things are whatever.
Listen, especially like you showed an interest in the peptide medicine.
Yeah.
They're evolving every time I turn around. There's something out there that is doing stuff. The only problem that we face with it is the research going to be able to keep up with the innovation.
Yeah.
And and the problem with peptides is that peptides are you can't patent.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't behoove the big money to do a lot of testing on it because that's why most of it comes from Europe. The one advantage of socialized medicine, because everybody in Europe has socialized medicine, and despite the, oh my God, people die and that they don't. I've been over there. I've lived over there. No, they don't. They have great medicine. In fact, they're they drive most of the innovation. We don't hear about it. Why? Because the government has to pay for their health. So literally things like gym memberships are tax deductible. Why? Because nobody wants, fat, sick people if you're paying for their medicine, to heal. No, they encourage you to work like this. And they're very innovative, and they do a lot of these studies in there. Why? Because what they're trying to do is keep people off of going to see the doctor because they're paying for it. So it kind of makes sense. So it's just the opposite here. We don't mind keeping people sick because we make money off sick people.
That's right.
There, they lose money off sick people. So they're trying to keep people healthier, and they're doing a good job. The average European outlives us by 4.5 years. And just so you know, 50% of their population, is it 50? Something like that. Something close to 50% of the population smoke.
Oh, yeah.
And they're still outliving us.
Yeah.
And they're still healthier than us. All right. So they're doing something right.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's where we get a lot of our good information from and stuff like that. So, from the study aspect of stuff. And so, what we're doing, like I said, we do our very, very best to stay, like I do, because that's my job, is stay up on as much of that information as we can and do this and be able to, get in there and look in, like one of the best anti-aging peptides came from Russia back in the 50s.
Yeah.
And
it just got better from there, man.
Yeah.
You didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Hardly anybody knows about it until, it broke out into Europe, and now everyone in Europe takes it. And you'll be taking it as soon as you finish up your cycle.
The good thing is, I know we got to wrap, but I mean, the good thing I'll say, not to make this political, I will say though, praise God, we finally have some leadership now that's pulling the handcuffs off these peptides. The ban is being taken away on several of them, and it's gonna come in batches. We're not gonna get it all at one fell swoop, but I mean, the floodgates are going to open now, and we're going to see even more of these things coming out. We're not going to see less. We're going to see more of it. Finally, this is what we've been waiting 15 years for.
Real medicine.
Real medicine. That's
real
exactly
health.
right.
Yeah.
Because it's your body fixing itself.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, Boomer, Guy, I'm not gonna call you Sandman anymore. I like this version better. If you guys are a potential client for them, reach out, call these guys, ask questions. Let them inform you on what it is you want, and let them, whether you want to go into weight loss or you want to go into peptides or whatever it is, like just call and ask, and they'll tell you what's right and what's wrong. I mean, it costs you nothing. So I think that's a really cool thing.
I'll also tell you something. One thing is that we also are not afraid to share what we don't know.
Yeah.
And if you come up with me with a question, I will find the answer.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's the one thing that I'm good at. I have connections in some of the most, I'm very fortunate. The one thing about being an ex-fighter, the now a doctor, it interests a lot of guys why I did that. So I have the access to a lot of doctors most people don't. Some leading guys. So I get to ask these guys questions, to answer stuff that I don't know. And I'm willing to say, hey, I don't know, but I'll find the answer for you.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do. And that's what we promise you guys. We will do our very, very best to get you, to be your, go-to health people.
Amen.
Cool. Boomer, Guy.
Yes, sir.
Until next time, guys. DynamisOnline.com. That's the blueprint.